The moment my little boy locked the door and whispered, "Don't let Dad in," my heart stopped. He had never done that before. It was a normal Saturday evening. I was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes when I heard the front door slam. My husband's footsteps were heavy, angry heavy. The kind that made the air feel tight. My son, Adam, was in the living room coloring quietly. He was only 6. Then I heard it. The click of the lock. I walked into the hallway and saw Adam standing on a chair, his tiny fingers twisting the deadbolt on our bedroom door. His hands were shaking. "Sweetheart, what are you doing?" I asked softly. He jumped down, ran to me, and wrapped his arms around my waist. His voice was barely a breath. "Don't let Dad in." Before I could ask why, my husband started banging on the bedroom door. "Why is this locked?" he yelled. Adam's body went stiff against mine, and in that second I understood. This wasn't fear of getting in trouble. This was fear of him. I had noticed changes in Adam over the past few months. He'd become quieter. He flinched at loud noises. He didn't want to be alone with his father anymore. I had asked him gently once, but he just shook his head. I told myself I was overthinking. That night, standing there with my son trembling in my arms, I knew I hadn't been overthinking. I had been ignoring. "Open this door!" my husband shouted again louder. I bent down to Adam's level. "Did Dad hurt you?" He didn't answer. He just buried his face in my chest and nodded. Something inside me cracked. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. I just got very, very quiet. I unlocked the door. My husband pushed it open, irritation all over his face. "What is wrong with you two?" I looked at him differently that night. Not as my partner. Not as the father of my child. Just as a man. Adam refused to leave my side. My husband rolled his eyes and muttered something about spoiling him, but I saw it now. The way Adam shrank when he got too close. The way my husband's jaw tightened when Adam made small mistakes. That night, after Adam fell asleep in my arms, I made a decision. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to accuse without proof. I was going to be patient. The next day, I bought a small voice recorder. The kind that looks like a USB stick. I hid it inside Adam's backpack. 3 days later, I got what I needed. I sat in my car and listened. At first, it was silence. Then my husband's voice. Cold. Controlled. "You don't tell your mom about this, okay? Or you'll be in real trouble." Adam's small voice answered, shaky. I didn't mean to spill it. Then the sound of something hitting the table. Adam gasping. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. It wasn't screaming abuse. It wasn't monstrous violence. It was intimidation. Threats. Fear. Enough. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I called a lawyer the next morning. I gathered everything quietly, recordings, screenshots of his temper, filled texts, notes I'd started keeping with dates and details. I enrolled Adam in after-school activities without telling him, so he'd never be alone with his father again. I opened a separate bank account. I smiled at dinner. I listened, I waited. 2 weeks later, I invited his parents over for dinner. He loved looking like the perfect family man in front of them. We sat at the table. Adam was quiet as usual. My husband was telling some story about work, laughing loudly. Halfway through the meal, I said calmly, "Before dessert, I want everyone to hear something." He frowned. "What?" I took out my phone, and I pressed play. The recording filled the room. "You don't tell your mom, or you'll be in real trouble." Adam's tiny voice. The sound of fear. My mother-in-law's fork froze midair. My father-in-law's face went pale. My husband stood up so fast his chair almost fell. "What is this? You're spying on me." I didn't raise my voice. "I'm protecting my son." Silence swallowed the room. He tried to defend himself. Said it was discipline. Said I was twisting things. But the recording didn't lie. And for the first time, he wasn't performing for me. He was exposed. That same week, he was served divorce papers at his office. His boss heard about it. His carefully polished image cracked. His parents refused to defend him. And the custody hearing. The recordings spoke louder than any argument he could make. He was granted supervised visits. Supervised. The man who once controlled the air in our house now had to sit in a monitored room to see his son. The day we moved into our new apartment, Adam helped me unpack his toys. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. But it was quiet. That night, he crawled into my lap and asked, "Dad can't yell at me here, right?" I kissed his forehead. "No one can." A few weeks later, I noticed something. He was laughing again. He was louder. Braver. He didn't flinch when a door closed. And one evening, as I was washing dishes in our tiny kitchen, he ran up behind me and hugged my legs. "You're my hero, Mom," he said. I closed my eyes and let that sink in. I didn't scream, I didn't fight, I didn't destroy him. I simply let the truth speak. And sometimes, that's the most powerful revenge of thought. It was over the day the judge signed the papers. But revenge, the real kind, doesn't end with a signature. It unfolds slowly, quietly, just like the damage did. A month after we moved out, my ex tried to act normal during his supervised visits. I watched from the corner of the room the first time. He sat stiffly across from Adam, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey buddy," he said. Adam didn't run to him. He didn't smile. He just nodded politely, like he was meeting a stranger. That hurt him more than anything. I could see it. He tried bringing expensive toys the next week. A remote control car, a tablet. Things he'd never bothered to buy before. Adam thanked him, then came home and left the gifts untouched in a corner. Children remember who made them feel safe, and who didn't. Meanwhile, my ex started calling me nonstop. Angry at first. "You embarrass me? You ruined my reputation. You could have handled this privately." Privately. That word almost made me laugh. Like fear should be hidden. Like bruises that don't show don't count. But I didn't argue. I kept everything in writing. Every message. Every voicemail. When he realized anger wasn't working, he switched tactics. "I've changed. I'm going to therapy. Can't we fix this?" Maybe he was going to therapy. Maybe he wasn't. But change isn't a speech. It's behavior over time. And I wasn't risking my son's peace to test his growth. Here's the part he never expected. I didn't try to destroy him socially. I didn't post anything online. I didn't call his workplace. I let his own actions follow him. His parents, once so proud, started asking questions. Why supervised visits? Why recordings? Why did their grandson refuse to hug them when he was at their house? They had heard the audio. They couldn't unhear it. Slowly, invitations stopped coming his way. Family gatherings felt awkward. His image cracked not because I attacked it, but because truth has weight. 6 months later, Adam had his first school play. He was a tree. Just a tree. But he practiced his one line for days. I saved a seat for his father. I told him the date and time. I wanted him to show up. He didn't. Said he had work. Adam scanned the audience once before the curtains opened. His face fell for half a second. Then he spotted me, and he smiled. That smile told me everything. That night, after the play, Adam asked, "Why doesn't Dad come?" I chose my words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups have to learn how to be better. And that takes time. He nodded like he understood. And maybe he did. The real revenge wasn't the divorce. It wasn't the courtroom. It wasn't even the recording. It was this: watching my son rebuild his confidence without fear breathing down his neck. Watching him raise his hand in class again. Watching him sleep peacefully through the night. Watching him laugh so loudly that neighbors could hear. One evening, almost a year later, there was a knock on my apartment door. It was my ex. He looked smaller, not physically, just deflated. "I messed up?" he said quietly. That was new, no excuses. No blame. I didn't realize how much I scared him. I studied his face for a long moment. "You didn't realize because you didn't want to?" I replied. He didn't argue. "I'm still going to therapy," he added. "I'm trying." I appreciated the honesty. But trying doesn't erase damage. "I hope you become the father he deserves," I said calmly. "But until he feels safe, nothing changes." And that was it. No dramatic door slam. Just boundaries. A few weeks later, during a supervised visit, something shifted. Adam was drawing at the table. My ex sat quietly beside him. Instead of correcting him, instead of criticizing, he just said, "That's really good." Adam looked up, surprised. It was small, but it was different. Healing doesn't look dramatic. It looks like restraint. It looks like effort. It looks like someone swallowing their pride. Do I trust him completely? No. But I don't need to hate him to win. Because the real victory was never about crushing him. It was about protecting my child. The night Adam locked that door and whispered, "Don't let Dad in," I felt powerless. But now our home has no locks we're afraid to use. Now my son doesn't flinch at footsteps. Now he runs freely through rooms without calculating moods. And the man who once controlled the atmosphere of our house has to earn the right to sit in the same room as his own child. Not through fear. Not through authority. But through consistent, patient proof. That's the part people don't talk about. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's watching the person who made your child feel small realize they are no longer in control. Sometimes it's building a life so peaceful that the chaos they created has no place to live anymore. And every time Adam laughs without looking over his shoulder, that's when I know. I understood exactly why he locked that door. And I'm so proud I never opened it the same year later. The sound of a door locking doesn't make my son tense anymore. But I still remember that click. It lives in my bones. The custody order stayed the same for 12 months. Supervised visits only. My ex followed the rules perfectly. Too perfectly. Always on polite. Always careful. Careful is different from kind. Adam noticed that too. One afternoon after a visit, he climbed into the backseat and said, "Dad doesn't yell now." I glanced at him in the mirror. "How does that make you feel?" He shrugged. Like he's trying not to. That broke my heart in a different way. Kids shouldn't measure love by how hard someone is trying not to hurt them. But something else was happening quietly. Adam started speaking up. At school, his teacher pulled me aside one day. "He's changed," she said. "He raises his hand now." He even corrected another student during reading time. Corrected another student. The same boy who once apologized for breathing too loudly. That was my payoff, not the courtroom. Not the embarrassment my ex faced when people found out why he only saw his son under supervision. The payoff was watching fear lose its grip. Then something unexpected happened. My ex filed a request for expanded visitation. Unsupervised. My stomach dropped when I saw the paperwork. He attached proof of therapy sessions, anger management classes, letters from his counselor, a clean record for the past year. On paper, he looked transformed. Old fear tried to creep back in. What if I had to hand my son back into the same house, where that whisper was born? But I wasn't the scared version of myself anymore either. I gathered everything again. Updates from Adam's therapist. Notes from his teacher. A record of every visit. And then I did something that surprised even me. I asked Adam what he wanted. He was 7 now. Old enough to feel, even if not fully understand. He stared at the floor for a long time. "I don't want to sleep there," he finally said. "But I think Dad is trying." There it was. Honest, careful, brave. In court, I didn't attack. I didn't replay the old recording dramatically. I simply said, "My priority is our son's emotional safety. If visits expand, they should expand slowly." The judge agreed to a step-up plan. Short unsupervised daytime visits. No overnights. Regular progress reviews. It wasn't a win for him. It wasn't a loss for me. It was controlled, measured, safe. The first unsupervised visit felt longer than it actually was. 3 hours. 3 hours where I couldn't monitor tone or body language. When Adam came home, I crouched down immediately. "How was it?" He thought for a second. "He got mad when I spilled juice," he said, and my heart stopped. Then he added, "But he went to the kitchen and took deep breaths. He didn't yell." I closed my eyes briefly. That was the first time I realized something powerful. My revenge had done something I didn't expect. It forced him to change. Not because I begged. Not because I threatened. But because he had something to lose. Access, reputation, respect. And now he understood that fear would cost him everything. Weeks turned into months. The visit stayed calm, controlled, almost stiff. But Adam no longer came home shaking. He started drawing pictures that included both of us again. In separate houses, yes, but smiling. One evening, while we were building a Lego tower on the living room floor, he looked up at me and said, "Mom." "Yeah. Thank you for listening that day." I froze. "What day?" "When I locked the door." He remembered it clearly. "I was scared," he said simply. "But you believed me." That was it. That was the entire story. He didn't care about court dates, or legal strategies, or how carefully I planned everything. He cared that I believed him, and that's when I truly understood the depth of that moment. My ex thought the humiliation was his punishment. He thought supervised visits were the revenge. He was wrong. The real revenge was this. He lost the automatic trust of his own child. And trust is not something you can demand back. You earn it in whispers. In restraint. In consistency. 2 years after the night of the locked door, Adam sleeps with his bedroom open. Wide open. He doesn't need barriers anymore. And my ex, he still has to knock. Not just on my apartment door, but on his son's emotional one. Every single time. And whether that door opens, that choice no longer belongs to him. It belongs to the little boy who once stood on a chair, locked a door with shaking hands, and saved himself. And to the mother who finally understood years later, the sound of keys at a door doesn't mean danger in our house anymore. It just means someone's home. Adam is 9 now, taller, louder, braver. Sometimes I catch him singing off key while brushing his teeth, and I just stand in the hallway listening like it's the most beautiful sound in the world. Because I remember when he barely spoke above a whisper. His father still sees him. The step-up plan eventually led to overnights, slowly, carefully, after reports from therapists and months of steady behavior. I won't lie. The first overnight felt like handing my heart to someone who once dropped it. But I watched patterns. I watched consistency. And more importantly, I watched Adam. The first morning after an overnight, he walked into my kitchen, dropped his backpack, and grabbed cereal like it was any normal day. No red eyes. No silence. No shaking. How was it? I asked casually. He shrugged. Fine, we watched a movie. He burned the popcorn. That was it. No coded fear hidden between words. Just a boring, ordinary report. Ordinary. That was the victory. His father changed not into a perfect man, not into a soft one, but into someone who understood that control had consequences. Therapy didn't magically fix him. Losing his family did. Sometimes pain is the only language people listen to. One afternoon I had to attend a parent-teacher conference and couldn't leave work early. For the first time, his father offered to go alone. Old panic flared in my chest. But I forced myself to pause. Revenge isn't about holding someone frozen in their worst moment forever. It's about making sure that moment never repeats. He went. Later that evening, he sent me a photo of Adam's math test. Big red A at the top. He's doing really well, he texted. You've done an amazing job. You. Not we, you. That message hit harder than any apology ever could. Because acknowledgement is rare from someone who once believed fear was authority. Months later, something happened that brought everything full circle. Adam and I were cleaning out old boxes in the closet when he found it. The tiny voice recorder. I must have thrown it in there without thinking. He picked it up. What's this? I hesitated. Then I told him the truth, in an age-appropriate way. It helped me understand something important when you were little. He looked at it for a long moment. You were scared too, weren't you? He asked quietly. No one had ever asked me that. I nodded. Yes. He stepped forward and hugged me, tight like he used to when he was 6. I'm glad you were brave, he said. Brave. I didn't feel brave back then. I felt terrified. I felt guilty for not seeing it sooner. I felt angry at myself for explaining away the signs. But bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's moving anyway. His father and I learned how to speak civilly. Short conversations at soccer games. Neutral exchanges at pickups. No tension thick enough to choke on. People who meet us now would never guess what once lived behind closed doors. And that's the quietest, most satisfying part of all. The chaos doesn't define us anymore. Last month, during a school writing assignment, Adam had to write about his hero. He didn't tell me. A week later, he came home waving a paper. Mom, I got the highest grade. I smiled. That's amazing. What was it about? He handed it to me. The title read, The Day My Mom Saved Me. My hands started shaking as I read his words. He wrote about the door. About locking it. About whispering, don't let Dad in. And he wrote, my mom listened to me. She didn't say I was being dramatic. She didn't tell me to be strong. She made it safe. Safe. That's the word that matters. His father read it too. Adam insisted on showing him. I watched from a distance as he stood there holding the paper. His jaw tightened slightly, but not in anger. In shame. And maybe in gratitude. He walked over to me later, voice low. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure he never feels like that again. I looked him straight in the eye. That's your responsibility, I said. Not mine. And for the first time, there was no bitterness in my voice. Just truth. Revenge doesn't always end with someone destroyed. Sometimes it ends with roles reversed. The man who once made our home feel small now works every day to deserve space in it. The little boy who once trembled behind a locked door now leaves his bedroom open at night. And me. I no longer wait for footsteps with tension in my chest. That night, when tiny hands turned a lock and a whisper changed everything, I thought I was losing my family. I didn't realize I was rebuilding it. Stronger. Quieter. Safer. And every time I hear my son laugh without hesitation, without scanning the room for danger, I know exactly why he locked that door. And I know I'll never ignore a whisper like that. Years have passed, and sometimes I still hear that tiny whisper in my dreams. Don't let Dad in. It doesn't haunt me anymore. It reminds me. Adam is 11 now. He's taller than my shoulder, his voice cracking when he laughs too hard. He plays soccer, argues about homework, slams his bedroom door like any normal preteen. And that door. It's never locked in fear. One evening after practice, we were sitting in the car, waiting for his father to pick him up for the weekend. The arrangement is balanced now. Shared custody, clear boundaries, zero tolerance for disrespect. His father pulled into the parking lot right on time. Adam watched him through the windshield. "He's different," he said quietly. I didn't answer immediately. I let him think. "How?" I asked. "He listens now." That simple sentence was heavier than anything else. His father walked over, nodded at me, and gave Adam a side hug. Not too tight, not forced. "I'll have him back Sunday at 6, he said calmly. I nodded. No tension, no silent battles, just structure. As they drove away, I didn't feel fear. I felt something close to closure. A few weeks later, the school hosted a family workshop about communication. Parents and kids had to do exercises together, role playing, listening drills, things like that. I almost didn't go. I didn't want to sit in a circle pretending we'd always been functional. But Adam wanted both of us there. So we showed up. At one point, the facilitator asked the kids to say one thing they appreciate about each parent. Adam turned to his father first. "I appreciate that you don't yell anymore," he said honestly. "And that you try." His father swallowed hard and nodded. Then Adam looked at me. "I appreciate that you believed me when I was scared." The room was quiet. No one else knew the full story. But we did. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit before. The revenge was never about punishment. It was about accountability. His father didn't lose everything. He lost control. He lost the version of fatherhood that relied on fear. And he had to rebuild from the ground up. That rebuilding cost him pride, reputation, comfort. It cost him years of earning back trust that once came automatically. Trust is expensive when you break it. Later that night, after dropping Adam off at my apartment, his father lingered for a moment in the hallway. "I was a different person back then," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "And you didn't destroy me when you could have." I held his gaze. "I protected my son," I said. "What happened after that was up to you?" He nodded slowly. That's the part people misunderstand about revenge. They imagine screaming matches, public exposure, lives burned to the ground. But the most powerful revenge I ever took was restraint. Documentation instead of drama. Strategy instead of shouting. Silence instead of chaos. I let the truth corner him. I let consequences teach him. And I made sure my child never had to whisper for help again. A few months ago, Adam had a sleepover at a friend's house. Late at night, he called me. Not crying, not panicking, just checking in. "Hey mom, just wanted to say goodnight." "Good night, sweetheart." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room and thought about the boy who once locked a door. Because he thought it was the only way to stay safe. Now he moves through the world differently. Confident, open, unafraid to speak. That transformation didn't happen by accident. It happened because I chose patience over explosion. Because I gathered proof instead of throwing accusations. Because I showed him that his voice mattered. And here's the final truth no one sees. His father thanks me now. Not out loud. Not directly. But in the way he follows the boundaries without complaint. In the way he asks Adam, "How does that make you feel?" instead of telling him how to feel. In the way he corrects himself mid-sentence when his tone gets sharp. He learned. The hard way. And every time Adam walks through any door without hesitation, whether it's his father's house, a classroom, or his own bedroom, I know that one small, shaking act of courage changed the course of his life. 5 years ago, my little boy stood on a chair, locked a door, and whispered for protection. Today, he stands tall, doors unlocked, voice steady. And the man he was afraid of, he knocks now. Every single time. And waits to be invited in.